Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Should the Guardians of the Galaxy join James Gunn's DC Universe? James Gunn recently said he'd love to work individually with the Guardians of the Galaxy actors again, and people are starting to make a huge assumption, as people do today on the internet, that he means they'll be coming over to join him on DC Universe, and people getting very triggered and upset by this. Personally, I don't know why you're upset about this. Bradley Cooper is already working over at DC. He produced Todd Phillips' Joker movie. He will be producing the sequel as well. Who wouldn't want a critically acclaimed actor like Bradley Walsh working on DC Universe? You'd have to be off your rocker not to want that. I mean, Bradley Cooper got the Guardians of the Galaxy gig at a time where he was literally being cast as everything. I remember when Bradley just finished Alias, and he found it very, very difficult to get anything. But when you're hot in Hollywood, you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. You know, same with Zoe Saldana. You know, a great actor. Why wouldn't you want her involved? The thing is, with the entertainment industry and Hollywood in general, it's really hard to find people to work with that you can trust. People out there, you people, may feel it's just about finding the best actors. And it's really funny when I hear fans doing all their, fan casting. That's all right. And some of it is goddamn awful, if you ask me. But no one says anything to you. But because James Gunn may want to bring over Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana and, Bradley Cooper and great actors like this over to DC Universe, which would make me really, really excited, some of you get all upset about it. Christopher Nolan mainly works with the same people in his movies. We've seen him recast actors. Bring back the people that he's worked well with in the past. There's nothing wrong with that. It is hard to find good people. And James Gunn has said himself, in terms of DC Universe, he will be acting with fresh talent, existing talent, and some talent he's already worked with. He said the most important thing, as I said, is that you work with people that are easy to work with. But people twisted that as well in terms of the Justice League situation. Listen, as a director and a writer, you have a vision. You want that vision to be implemented as closely to said vision as possible. And you don't want difficult diva actors making it difficult for you. I don't mind actors when we're doing a play saying, well, Mick, what if I change this word or that word? But if they're constantly in your fucking ear being really, really difficult, it doesn't help a good, positive environment. So James Gunn owes his career to the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy. When he was fired for his historical tweets, it was them who said, we ain't doing the third movie without James. He owes them so much, and he's a very loyal, faithful guy in that element. So there's actually nothing wrong with him using the Guardians of the Galaxy actors in future projects. He did say he'd love to work with them again individually. So, personally, I think it'd be a lot of fun if he did a movie version of DC's Legends of Tomorrow and used that cast, in those roles, because basically Legends of Tomorrow is very similar in terms of a group of misfits on a ship, right? That would be really awesome. But a lot of people say, no, Mick, we don't want that. We want the CW cast. Well, you never know. They might bring the CW cast over for a kind of movie DC Universe remake of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and that would be cool. I enjoyed the first couple of seasons of Legends of Tomorrow until I realised it was a show that hated my gender, and I stopped watching it, which is a shame. Nobody wants to sit there having their gender bashed and being told it's all men and we're all a problem, right? And pretending that women, the sun shines out of a woman's backside and no woman in the history of humanity has ever put a foot wrong, and it's just men. But going back to this issue, I don't see anything wrong with it, and I would absolutely welcome the Guardians of the Galaxy cast to DC Universe. And, one fan, atting James Gunn, please, James, don't bring the Guardians of the Galaxy cast to DC. Why? Why? Why wouldn't you want them? If he cast, like I suggested to him, and he liked this about a year or so ago, that Robert Downey Jr. would make a great old man Hal Jordan to a younger John Stewart, he liked it. Why wouldn't you want Robert Downey Jr. involved? He's an absolute talent. In fact, he, like Bradley Cooper, is producing DC content right now over on Netflix with Sweet Tooth. So, just because someone, it's pathetic, to say just because someone's worked with Marvel, they can't work with DC. I'm not saying we want this to happen all the time. I'm a fan of giving fresh talent a go. Because in Hollywood today, especially with fan casts, I don't hear people saying, let's get a fresh name. For Superman, for example. Or the new Batman. It looks like James Gunn not only casting a brand new Superman for DC Universe, but a Batman. And I'm hearing the same old shitty fan casts all the time. There are a multitude of actors, arriving in Hollywood who are struggling. Talented people, by the way, that I know myself. That are not being given a chance because people go on Twitter saying, oh, why don't we give this famous actor a try? So when people say to me on my lives, what about this actor, Mick? What about that actor? It's not like you're doing anything wrong, but it kind of annoys me as such because is that your vision for DC? Just to use the same old actors going around the circuit all the time? Not for me. So I'm a fan of fresh actors getting an opportunity, and it really doesn't happen in Hollywood as much as it used to. And that's a shame. It's the same old people being fan cast again and again. And it bores the freaking shit out of me if I'm being honest. But yeah, nothing wrong with using the Guardians cast individually to join DC. It's just a ridiculous thing to be upset about, if you ask me. And sometimes I agree with James Gunn, sometimes I don't agree with James Gunn. Conversations about our creatives in the entertainment industry today have got to be balanced. You can like someone and disagree with them, and sometimes agree with them. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where people think if you don't agree about someone, you're not a real fan. And that's not how fandom works. That's not how friendship works, by the way. But modern day people believe unless you're always patting a friend on the back, you're not a real friend. This is just the world we live in today. People just want an echo chamber. That's why every time I say something on this channel that someone doesn't agree with, they get all upset and they unsubscribe. Is that the world we want to live in? If someone says something that annoys me, a YouTuber that I subscribe, that I've supported for years, I'm not going to unfollow them because they've upset me, because they don't agree with me. I don't go onto YouTube channels for an echo chamber. I don't follow people on Twitter to have an echo chamber. If you amuse me or entertain me, I'll stick with you. And if you bore me, I won't. And that's the thing. But again, this is the environment we live in. So yes, if James Gunn wants to cast Chris Pratt as Bruce Wayne, bring it fucking on. I think he will be brilliant. I myself was fan casting him as Indiana Jones a few years ago. I think he'd be a fucking perfect Indiana Jones, because kind of in a way Peter Quill is that kind of arrogant alpha male type of character, and Chris does that so well. I've got a lot of time for Chris Pratt. I'm not a Chris Pratt hater like some people. After the first Guardians, everyone loved the shit out of Chris Pratt, and all of a sudden people were saying, why is Chris Pratt being cast all the time? Yeah, well, why are you fan casting your favourite actors? You're a bunch of fucking hypocrites, if you ask me. Chris Pratt is great. Bring him to DC. Bring Zoe to DC. Bring Bradley Cooper to play a role in DC. Bring them all, man. They're great actors. James Gunn cast a bunch of great actors into his Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. and it's been great, and he's going to give those characters a great ending. And those actors have been so loyal to James. They really fought and stood by him, while, when he was fired by Disney for the historical tweets. And, without James's allies, his actors that he cast, and the people he brought onto Guardians, he wouldn't be back there to finish his saga off. So he owes them a lot. So of course he wants to work with them again, and he likes them. They're good people. They work well together. That's why the Economist character was played by James's good friend in Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad. That's okay. There's nothing actually inherently wrong with that. It's like what I said earlier about Christopher Nolan. How many times has he worked with the same actors again and again, especially Michael Caine and, other actors like that? Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. As I say, it's very hard to find people you can trust in this industry, and I know that from personal experience. So if you've got a bunch of actors and crew workers and VFX artists that you can trust, of course, you work with them again. You don't say, oh, no, I've already worked with those people. I want to work with fresh people. No, you don't do that, because these people have got your back, and they know as a writer-director, you have their back too. It's a unit. You need a trustworthy unit. You do need a crew to be a family. When it's a family unit, everyone's got each other's back. So, yeah, I don't really understand what the problem is, but on the subject of the Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe cast members joining DC Universe, I'd like you to just comment down below, either here on the live premiere or when you're watching the video at your leisure. Comment down below. Who would you like to see the Guardians of the Galaxy actors play in DC Universe? So I'm making a bold prediction. Chris Pratt to play Bruce Wayne. Now, this would piss off so many fucking people. In fact, that's why I would find it kind of amusing. But personally, as I just said, I think Chris would make a great Bruce Wayne and Batman. I really, really do. I think he's got everything to be a great Batman and Bruce Wayne. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but it's something that I can see happening. And let me know. Would you cast Chris Pratt? First of all, would you bring Chris Pratt to the DC Universe? Do you think he would make a great Bruce Wayne and Batman? It's okay. I don't want an echo chamber. You can constructively and politely disagree with me. I'm here to have polite, constructive discourse. That's what this place is. People ask me sometimes, how do you decide what to talk about when there's no breaking news? Well, I don't talk about stuff that's going to get me views. Surprise, surprise, I don't get that many views. Bothered, but I talk about stuff that I want to talk about. I get stuff off my chest that I want to get off my chest. I find it very, very therapeutic. And if I see at least 30 views on my video, I say, do you know what? That's cool. If I see 5 or 6 likes, I go, that's cool. I appreciate the people who have taken, time out of their day to watch my videos, and I'm happy. And I get about my business, either, drinking tea, smoking a cigarette, having a jam donut, or whatever I do when I'm not doing this video, right? That's who I am. I'm not here to make money. If I do make money ever out of this channel, which would be a miracle, I'd be happy. If I become really famous from this channel, I'd be really, really excited as well. But it's not a must. I don't sit there looking at every view and going, oh no, it's not good. Nobody's watching my channel. It's a bit of fun, and I really, really do enjoy coming every day. It's a buzz for me. Get up, have my breakfast, cup of tea, cigarette, do my video. And whether people enjoy the video or not, I want people to enjoy the video. Of course I do. I don't want to bore people. But at the end of the day, I'm mostly doing this for me. It's something cathartic and enjoyable. You probably can tell I'm very passionate about the industry, and especially DC live action. And I love talking about this shit. So, it's great. And I really thank you for coming in to watch the video. So yes, it's a yes from me. Bring all the Guardians of the Galaxy cast into DC Universe, and I think there'll be great specific roles for them. I definitely think he'll work with some of them here at DC. I really do. And again, I don't see anything wrong with that. And I would support James Gunn for doing that. Now, in the second part of the show, I want to talk about selling Netflix, it's not selling Netflix, but I don't even own Netflix. How can I sell it? But selling the Snyderverse to Netflix. Now, that campaign is getting huger and huger. And even though I haven't spoken about it in a few videos, I have been keeping an eye on it. And I've been seeing a lot of fans now making videos as part of this campaign. And, you know, a lot of people think that this campaign doesn't stand a chance. But you try telling the Snyderverse fans and stans who are fighting hard for this. And Netflix haven't been asked by the media if this is even possible. They haven't reacted. They haven't come on social media to say, look, guys, stop it. There's no chance. Zack Snyder seems to support this campaign. And why wouldn't he? Be very interesting when he starts doing marketing later at the back end of this year for Rebel Moon. If he's asked, he will definitely be asked. There's no question about that. But I like this campaign. You've seen me speak about the Snyderverse many, many times. I'm also constructively critical about several, things that Snyder did with these DC characters in the Snyderverse. But I also always, give you that disclaimer that I love Zack. I think he's a lovely man. I love his wife, Deb. I love the Snyderverse in general. Personally, I wish it was an Elseworld from the beginning and not a part of a central universe because of some of the things he did. If it's an Elseworld, it works. And I think that these films would have made more money with the other expectations of it being an Elseworld and not a central universe, a shared universe where they wanted to make MCU money. If they did that from the beginning, it really would have worked and we wouldn't be here today. So I think it's a great campaign. In a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter if it happens or not, and these are not trashy people running this campaign. These are not toxic people. These are just fans. They're like me. They appreciate Zack. They love Zack. They're fans of his and they want to see his Snyderverse Justice League arc completed. And, for me, there's nothing wrong with that. And people coming in on them saying, what are you doing this for? It's never going to happen. Just imagine what you want from the world, what you want from your movies. If someone said that to you, that you're not going to get what you want from Shazam! Fury of the Gods or the Flash movie or Blue Beetle or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, you would be upset. When the Snyderverse fans do that, you get upset. So don't do the same thing to them. Let's respect each other. Let's respect what each other loves. We can be constructively critical of different things, all of us, each of us love, but let's be respectful. There's no need for a war. We're all DC fans at the end of the day. So let the Snyderverse fans and stans fight for this. I think it's a great campaign. I would be so happy. I would fucking celebrate. I would dance the jig even, in my boxer shorts on this fucking channel and pour freezing cold water over my head, for a charity of my subscribers' choice if this happened. I would be so happy if Netflix did get the rights to the Snyderverse. And if there's a way that Warner Brothers and Netflix can work together where Warner Brothers really don't have to invest any money and this is all on Netflix, but I think they would have to at least put in 10 to 25% of the infrastructure of the funds for this to happen, but there is a profit margin here for Warner Brothers Discovery to do it. They're selling off different things. They need to raise $3 billion, as we already know. So if it is possible for this to happen, I know that Zack wants this to happen, and his fans most certainly want this to happen. I sometimes giggle to myself. If you follow me on Twitter at MoviesTVMag, you will see that a predominant amount of my tweets are quote tweets with laughing emojis, just laughing at the incompetence of the modern day entertainment industry. I think, we as fans would do a better job. Don't forget, we're not trained. We're not trained. Where do you point a camera? What does a dolly track mean? We don't know shit, right? But I still think we would do a better job. at running these franchises and these movies than these idiots in the industry today. When you look at the Universal, the Universal attempt at the monster universe, and they had Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe in that movie, and I even forgot what it's called, and this was going to be the launch of their monster universe or whatever you call it. Absolute fucking joke. Absolute clueless. But it's not as hideously clueless as how the DCEU was implemented from the very, very beginning. It's laughable, all the mistakes they made. They brought in a divisive director like Zack Snyder to make movies, even though they saw what happened with Watchmen. I like Zack, but let's be clear here. They wanted to make DC movies for a mainstream audience, for the MCU audience, the audience that enjoyed Avengers. And they thought, I know, I've got a good idea. Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder. Now, Nolan just came off of The Dark Knight Rises. It was Goyer who had the idea for Man of Steel. I get it. But Nolan literally wasn't hands-on after Man of Steel. What a joke that is in the first place. Then they leave Zack Snyder to his own devices with BVS, which was, divided audiences even further. Again, as I say every day, so people don't get upset, so they understand my position. I love the Snyderverse and I absolutely adore BVS, but they thought they were going to get Avengers money while allowing a divisive director like Zack Snyder to do this. And then they go, I know, Zack, you've already made a Justice League movie. You're out the door, mate. Joss Whedon, if we promise you a Batgirl movie, just chuck some bright colours and some smiles on Zack's Justice League movie. So we get Justice League movie. Then we get the Justice League movie. Now, let me give you a quote from an actor. At the red carpet event of Justice League, even if there wasn't a Marvel, the DCEU was always going to fail. Henry Cavill at the red carpet for Justice League. Never a truer word was spoken. And at the time, people were very, very upset. It sounded like a betrayal towards Zack. But don't forget, Henry knew that they fucked with his upper lip before we did. Henry knew what was going on, even though he claims he didn't know much about what was going on. With the toxicity on the Justice League set, he knew what was going on. He knew that the film that he attended a red carpet for was a fucking disaster. And that's why he said what he said. Now, we as fans were very naive. We believed that Joss Whedon was a friend of Zack Snyder's, and Zack Snyder just decided not to be involved anymore because of the tragic death of his daughter. And we can all understand that. So we didn't see any problems here. We went to see the movie, obviously, the red flags were flying when we heard it was only a 2-hour movie. I mean, when was the last time Zack Snyder made a 2-hour movie? That's something else that, really was mystifying, wasn't it? Cutting that movie down to 2 hours, cutting Black Adam down to 2 hours, which is nothing to do with Snyder. But a lot of the movies they make today are being cut to 2 hours. Marvel are doing it a lot now. Now, their movies used to be around 2 hours 15, 2 hours 30 minutes, and now even their films are being cut down. So, as I say, they thought that Justice League was a good idea and they could just go from one direction to the other, and it was an absolute disaster. And it really continued like that, disaster after disaster. Every time they dug themselves out of one hole, they dug themselves another 6-foot crater. We went from the Snyderverse to Justice League. Then we had a big hit with Aquaman. And then we went to a disaster with like Birds of Prey, then a bigger disaster like Wonder Woman 84. And, the more you look at what they were doing, it was hideous. It was hideous. Then they had the idea of the multiverse strategy to kind of move away from Snyder by going to another timeline as well. And then I was obsessed with that, and I thought, that's a really good idea, right? Making everything we've ever seen in DC live action canon. What could possibly go wrong? Well, shelving Superman and replacing him with Supergirl instead of having Superman and Supergirl standing together, as they always have in the comics, you know, and things like that. That's when I realized this wasn't an exciting plan. This wasn't good, and this was disappointing. So everything they do turns to shit. So then you see a takeover coming. So you think this guy Zaslav may know what he's doing. So then he creates DC Studios. We've been crying out for an independent studio for DC, like Marvel Studios have got for many, many years. And we thought, right, this guy's a professional. The professionals are here now. It's going to be good. Then he gives the gig to James Gunn and Peter Safran, two people that were already there at the studio and brought in by people that Zaslav fired. The irony of that isn't lost on me. Now, I'm not going to prejudge the situation until James and Peter tell us our plans for the franchise. Then I'll let you know once I've got my teeth into it and I've really thought about it deeply. Then I will do a video and tell you what I think about these announcements. Let's hope the announcement that James has been promising us isn't postponed, because then I will be very, very suspicious about the whole situation. But I wait to see what we're getting before I judge it. So as I say, you know, I believe the fans could have done a much better job of the DC Extended Universe than these people did. And people will say, but you don't know the industry. The fans don't know what they're talking about. It's easier to be fans. It's harder to actually do the job. Let me tell you what's harder. It would have been easier to succeed with the DC Extended Universe than to fail. You have people making it who understand DC, who work within the comic community, who have written comics, who have drawn beautiful comic art. They're the people who work at DC Animation. They all work together with the animators and everything. That's why DC Animation is so hugely successful and loved by the nerds, the DC nerds, so deeply. But they didn't do that. Snyder does love DC, but he loves a side of DC that subverts expectations, subversive stories like Watchmen. And that isn't what's needed for a mainstream DC franchise. And, you know, all they had to do was say, right, we're going to do a DC Extended Universe like there's a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we need people who understand this. Now, even though people hate Geoff Johns, I think if Geoff came in on his own and there was no Zack Snyder, I think he could have created something really good, because he gets the comics. He's worked on Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. This guy knows his stuff. Now, I don't know what happened with Wonder Woman 84, because people will say, well, he co-wrote that film, Nick, and you don't like that film. I know, right? I don't get it either. But then you look at his work on Smallville with absolute justice, perfection. Legion is even better in my book of Smallville than Absolute Justice. And then he did a Booster Gold episode for the final series of Smallville as well. And his Stargirl show is really, really good. So when he's working on his own and left to his own devices, you know, this is a guy who absolutely understands DC. It's why he fell out with Snyder, because he took it personally what Snyder was doing with DC. Again, I repeat, stuff that Snyder did, I loved, but ultimately I would rather have someone who's doing things that works for everyone rather than some people. But if we can have a DC universe like James Gunn's doing now with Peter Safran, but Zack can have his stuff on Netflix, that is the perfect marriage, and that's brilliant. And, you know, take my money now. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same. If we can get the best of both worlds, why not? So, yeah, when I see all the decisions that Warner Brothers have made, you know, during these different leaderships and ownerships of the company and what they've done with DC, I think it's insane when you look that they launched a Batman Begins movie and then a Superman Returns movie back to back. But those two movies had nothing to do with each other. 2 years later, Kevin Feige and the Marvel people, you know, launched an independent film company, kicked off with Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and created a connected universe, which is exactly what Nolan's and Singer's movies should have been. But Nolan didn't want a connective franchise, and there lies the problem. Nolan did wonders for Batman with his Dark Knight trilogy, but ultimately, if you connected Superman Returns, think about this. I've said this on this channel before. If you had connected Superman Returns, Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds, and Batman Begins, imagine the kind of franchise you could have kicked off with. Even if Green Lantern was kind of seen like an Incredible Hulk or an Ang Lee Hulk, which a lot of people don't like, you still, that Incredible Hulk movie, which is not loved by the whole community, is still canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They took it on the chin. People didn't particularly like it. It didn't make as much money as they wanted, but they stuck with it. Basically, Feige did the opposite to what WB did after MOS and BVS. All they had to do was take it on the chin and go down a direction they wanted to go. But they didn't do that. Feige did with The Incredible Hulk. Every time Feige's had a movie that people didn't care for as much, like the first Captain America, a film, by the way, I absolutely adore and don't get why Marvel fans don't like that film, but they just went with it. Okay, now we're going to do a better sequel. And they did. But every time WB got a bit of criticism, they got all scared and they started being reactive. And this is the problem, everyone. The truth is, the filmmakers and producers that made content for me when I was growing up in the late 70s, 80s and 90s knew their fucking stuff. These are people who made movies like Ghost, who gave us great animated series like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. These people got a buzz out of entertaining you and me. And these people are not only, so extremely political and obsessed with their political worldview, they're absolutely incompetent. And their last motivation is to entertain and uplift your mood, which is the whole point of fucking entertainment in the first place. This has been Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, subscribe, comment. Please hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. See you again soon.